Confinement is one of my all-time favorite Roblox games, and my favorite horror game on the site. Around 10 months ago, I played it for the first time, and overall, it was a fun experience. But I noticed that chapters 3.5 and 4 were very difficult, and during those boss fights, I had the help of some other people, so I wondered if I could beat it alone. Going into the challenge, I knew it was possible, since it's fairly similar to the Souls games, in which I have very little experience, and people have beaten them without taking damage, which is insane. So I knew that other people could easily do it, but could I? With enough attempts, probably. I loaded onto my alt account to start chapter 1. The first chapter is fairly calm. It doesn't have too much combat, as it's more of a tutorial chapter. Not too much happens until the end. After entering a square room, the doors will shut, but a small ball will roll out. It will chase you down at every step. The way to beat it is to walk behind pillars in the corners of the room, and force it to collide with them. If you do this enough times, it will go down. And after walking down a small hallway, the chapter will end. Chapter 2 gets a bit more difficult. A minute in, you're given an axe, and a minute after that, the first enemy appears. This fight isn't too hard, just try to get behind it and attack it like that. It should go down fairly quickly. Continuing past few hallways, another enemy will appear, and directly after that, another. Always remember that you can heal, because at this point you might be a little low on health. A few rooms later is a mini-boss fight. It's not too difficult. It's pretty much just a normal enemy that does a little more damage and has extra health. So just keep attacking it and healing when needed. After that, just do a little bit of backtracking and you'll beat Chapter 2. So far, nothing too difficult. Chapter 3 is where things get a little more difficult. After a little walking and an enemy encounter, you'll find a little creature crawling on its hands with a scorpion tail that will try to impale you with it. Unlike other enemies, these are a little more dangerous, but nothing that can't be defeated. I would recommend attacking twice, waiting to dodge his attack, and then attack back. The following rooms might be a little more difficult. You have to fight 2 more basic enemies and 1 scorpion enemy. Luckily not at the same time. But at this point you should be getting fairly low on healing items, so you might want to take them slow and safely. The last room of this chapter is kinda easy. There are 3 basic enemies, but since you might be low on health, they could accidentally kill you, like they did to me on my first attempt. But once you beat them, you move on to Chapter 3, Part 2, the first boss fight. This is what I was most scared of going into the challenge. This fight wasn't too hard. Mostly you remember to dodge. The most annoying part of this fight was the weird hitboxes of some of the attacks. Like this one didn't even hit me. I would recommend dodging his attacks. Most have very obvious tells, then running to hit him. Eventually he will go down, sending you to the final part of the game, Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is easily the most difficult battle in this game. The enemy deals like 1/4 of your health per hit, like at least, and it takes multiple hits to kill. Luckily, all of his attacks are fairly avoidable. Most have easy tells or can just be avoided easily. The main attack that I had trouble with was when it jumped in the air because it could do one of 2 things. It could jump towards you, giving you easily 2 free attacks, or it could jump back and swing its axe on the ground. I would often dodge forward thinking it would be the first attack, only to get hit with the latter. For the first phase, I would recommend just taking your time. Most attacks are easily avoidable, and some even very punishable, like when he jumps forward. Other attacks that can be easily countered are when he dashes forward. Most of the time before he does this, he will swing his axe in sort of an X pattern before dashing. Once he does dash, run towards him and dodge to the left for at least a single free attack. Another easily, in quotes, counterable attack is when he pulls out a red bomb, which I personally call it the Mississippi Mud Bomb. But after he sticks it into the ground, wait a few seconds, then dodge, and you should be able to avoid the hurt box to get a free attack. But if you miss this, you will take half your health. So I would only go for those if you feel confident you can dodge his attacks. A general tip that I would give for this boss is to use your dodges to avoid attacks instead of getting away. Often I would get too close to the boss and instinctively dodge my way out, but I would stop short and get hit by an attack. Whereas if I had waited for the attack and dodged then, I would have gotten out of there without taking damage. Once he reaches about 1/3 health, he'll go into phase 2. The attacks for phase 2 are a little different. He has all the same attacks plus a few. For probably the most annoying attack in the game, he will run directly in front of you and slam his hammer down multiple times. I don't know a guaranteed way to avoid this. I just mashed space and hoped for the best. For the other attack, he will grab a bomb from the ground and throw it at you. He will most likely do this multiple times, so always look out for the bomb rather than where the boss moves. But those are pretty much all his attacks. So with this information, you have no choice but to beat the boss. So let's go. Overall, a fairly easy challenge, but it was still a fun challenge, at least to me. The hardest thing was definitely the final boss. I had about 3 hours of attempts on it, which isn't that long, but for a 10-minute fight, it took a while. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this challenge, just because I think the game is more fun with friends. But if you do want a challenge, then I would recommend it. Containment and Confinement are still some of my favorite Roblox games, so I would recommend checking them out regardless. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.